Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. As we all know by now, summer is a time when the racists who run YouTube start attacking accounts heavy. Those of you who have followed me over the years know that summer is when they start terminating channels, start locking channels, putting age restrictions on a whole bunch of channels, and they do it all at once. This is the time of year when they like to do it. Summer is when these people get active. You probably remember that last year was when they attacked my account over a Will Smith video. They accused me of cyberbullying. They didn't try to accuse me of using vulgar language because, of course, I don't do that. They also didn't have the ability to accuse me of any sort of hate speech, which is what they use for any speech that they hate. Instead, they said cyberbullying. Really. This happens every year they start doing this mess, so make sure you follow me on Twitter. When they pull their mess, you won't have to be one of the clueless folks who inevitably ask, why hasn't the professor posted in a while? Anyway, today's briefing is about something I was tempted to address on Monday, but I think that how we start the week has an impact on how the week goes, so I chose to begin it by dovetailing the Cosby video with Elie Mystal, because when a bootlick is slamming their gums about something, it's important to check their paperwork, look at their background, and you'll see they have a long record of attacking us and our interests. But the subject that I want to talk about this morning actually is much closer to home. For the longest time, I've told you about institutions, what they are, how they operate. Most people think that an institution is a building, but that's not what it means. Institutions are the guardians of ideas and ideals, but institutions are comprised of people. The white media does what the military calls image training. That's where they show you images and associate words or particular themes with those images. In the case of an institution, the white media almost always shows you some big building of some sort, usually has pillars in front of it, and that's what people see when they talk about an institution. As a result, people make an association in their minds between some multi-story building and that being an institution. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a building. In fact, that's a good thing, because it means you have resources that you're able to leverage in order to get your hands on some tangible items to forward your agenda. But you can't have an institution without resources. It's impossible. A building is just that, a box. You can put people in there who are pursuing a mission. That makes it an institution. Or you can use it to store a bunch of empty boxes, and you can call that a warehouse. The choice is yours. It is the people who make a building into an institution. An institution is a group of people who come together to protect and promote a particular idea or ideal. People refer to a church as an institution oftentimes, or to a university or a social club as institutions. Sometimes they'll refer to a person as an institution. Now, of course, that's playing fast and loose with the meaning, but you get the point. Creating and maintaining our own institutions, that's a tradition we need to get back to, seriously. Brother Tariq with the FBA Museum, that's an effort to establish an institution. I've often told you about these racist right-wing think tanks. Another name for a think tank is a public policy institute. In fact, that's what they're normally called. Think tank is more of a nickname for them. But these are groups like the Manhattan Institute. The Manhattan Institute are the people who for 40 years have gathered and pushed all manner of anti-black racists. That's basically what they do. People like Charles Murray, who wrote the infamous book The Bell Curve, Heather McDonald, who wrote the ridiculous War on Cops book that attempted to defend all the murders the police commit against black people, and of course more recently Christopher Rufo. He's the clown running around in Florida pushing hysteria about critical race theory. These people didn't just sprout out of the ground. They were funded, pushed, and promoted by a specific institution, in this case the Manhattan Institute. And they've been doing this mess for decades now. The Manhattan Institute is a group of people who are dedicated to protecting the idea of white supremacy and promoting anti-black racism. That's the ideal they're trying to protect. Now, because we as black people have been systematically and hyper-aggressively deprived of resources, we haven't been able to give rise to our own institutions. And if you feel that black empowerment, black survival, is an idea worth protecting, how do you do that without the resources necessary to put in place and sustain groups of people dedicated to protecting that idea? You can't do it without resources. Ideas take time to be developed and refined. Ideas also need resources so that the thoughts in someone's head or the words they write on a page can be translated into real-world action, into something tangible. Ideas also require resources in order to spread them. You have to put the word out and get it out to a lot of people. The more people you reach, the more likely you are to attract other people who are like-minded. But institutions also require protection. That's something else the enemy understands and that we need to understand too. Now, as I've explained, institutions are comprised of people. So when you say that an institution must be protected, what you're really saying is that the people who comprise that institution must be protected. Now, as the Black community, we have an institution, this new Black media. And the new Black media is comprised of two parts. The Black grassroots whose interests are represented by the new Black media, and the advocates who speak on behalf of our people's interests. You can't have one without the other. The word advocate comes from the Latin advocare, which means to call to one's aid. Advocates exist to render a particular type of help, a type of aid that they are specially suited to perform. Advocates must speak up for the people they represent. That is how their lives reaches its highest expression. But what often goes unsaid is that the relationship between the advocate and those who they advocate for is reciprocal. That's why I always tell you, a people who do not protect their advocates will have no advocates. And I'm not just talking about a Malcolm or a Martin. I'm talking about Black people who stand up against the lies and dare to tell the truth. The new voices of Black media are the mouthpiece, but as a collective, we have to stick up for one another. Advocates must stick up for and protect those who they advocate for, and those who are advocated for must make sure that they put a wall of protection around those speaking on their behalf. Because we live under a system of anti-Black racism, the value of Black contributions to society or Black ingenuity, Black thought, and of course Black lives has been completely and utterly devalued. And there's not a day that goes by that white supremacy doesn't remind us of this. And because we live in a society that perpetually devalues us, one that we currently don't have the ability to change, a lot of that anti-Black hostility rubs off on us and becomes internalized. Now, I guess I've said all that to lead up to this. The new voices of Black media, your advocates, often come under attack. Many of the people pulling these attacks are overt and they do it out in the open. You see those, well, a lot of you see them. But other attacks, in fact, I'd say the majority, are done in far more subtle ways. It's not just the usual, we're going to do a flag campaign against your channel or what have you. We have a number of people in this space who are actively working to undermine what we do, and they try to do that by causing conflict and sowing division amongst us. This is why we call them agents. For the slow wits out there, agents doesn't necessarily mean that they must be working for the government, though many of them clearly do. But it does mean that you got somebody who's working against the interest of our group. And whether you are literally getting some money or a pat on the head from this or that white supremacist organization, or you're just someone deciding that you want to harm what it is we're doing, it's the same thing to me. Make sure that you keep an eye and an ear out for people who call themselves attacking the new voices of Black media, because infiltration is the first part of any effort to tear an organization apart from the inside. These attacks usually take the form of someone complaining about something that one of us has said or whining that we're not talking about something or other. No matter what we do, it will never be right. And then when it is when you look at what these people are claiming that they want to bring attention to, it's usually something that we've been talking about all along, or it's something that's irrelevant. Now, we know about these agents who work for the Democrats or some sort of white liberal or conservative interest, but we also have to be vigilant about the clout chasers. These are some of the worst, and they spend a lot of time trying to get noticed on Twitter feeds or the comment sections on YouTube or Facebook. These clout chasers are people who didn't come to build. They came to tear down what we're doing. They pretend to be on our side in the hope that they can get themselves some credibility, but mostly what they do is they try to be in the comment sections of people who actually do have the kind of credibility they desperately wish they had. That's what they try to do. They hang around people who have credibility, and they hope that that's going to rub off on them. They hope that they'll fool some people. Oh, didn't you see my comments? Didn't you see my account? Didn't you see my avatar? Why, I was in Professor Truth's mentions and this, that, and a third. And then they will inevitably begin attacking us under the guise that we said something about a political party or about an activist figure or some claim that we are being divisive somehow, and divisive meaning that we're calling out the people like Roly-Poly or calling out the Joy Reids or the, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying something about these tethers, that's so divisive. That's the kind of mess that they'll do, but they do it among a long number of lines, not just one or two things. Keep an eye out for that. The excuses are legion, but it always boils down to the same thing. Somebody who's attacking us in the hopes of getting you to follow them. And then, of course, they start attacking the new voices of black media, sounding like every white media outlet you've ever heard. And when people call them out on it, they say, "Why, you can't call me an agent. Well, haven't you seen all the work I put in?" And then when you ask them, what work have you done, they point to their comments that they posted. Because apparently to them, that's doing big things. When someone comes bombing into the comments and says, "Hey, y'all need to be talking about thus and so," or "I'm trying to do some get together or some rally for etc., and y'all need to be talking about that. How come y'all ain't talking about that?" What they're really saying is we need to be obeying them, because that's what they want. These people are often trying to get their own little irrelevant little movements going, and they'll gripe that we're not talking about them. So we're not actually black media is kind of thing that they'll say. Now, there's absolutely nothing stopping these whiners from getting on the internet and speaking on whatever it is that they're so angry about. If you feel as if the new black media is not covering something that you think deserves it, what's stopping you from doing that? See, the white supremacists, they don't have that kind of stupidity going on. They don't have people who are sitting there saying, "Well, Sean Hannity didn't talk about this and so Sean Hannity's not a real conservative." They don't do that kind of stuff. In fact, for a lot of them, if they see something that's not being spoken on, they feel that they've identified a niche. They've identified some sort of service gap, to put it in entrepreneurial terms. Something that they can point to and say, "Hey, here's something that I can go ahead and carve out my own little corner for. Here's something that people aren't talking about. Here's something I can use this for." That's what you do if you're looking to build. But these people, they're not trying to build. And they're trying to get other people to try to speak for them. Why? Because nobody will listen to them, that's why. So they figure that by attacking us, they'll simultaneously get people to finally notice them and bring attention to their would-be movement or their channel or whatever. And then they think that they're going to be on their way. We've seen this tactic used for a very long time. And it doesn't work. A lot of these people are in fact some of the same folks who we left behind 15 years ago when we started this project in black self-determination. The people who you see attacking us are oftentimes the remnants of the Kundalini energy, status correction, shea butter bootlicks, religious tribe affiliated whatever the hell. When we came on the scene 15 years ago, we took a lot of the wind out of their sails, and many of them realized that we had rendered them obsolete. So they've been attempting to besmirch our reputations or to start some beef or another with us. What we do requires brains and determination, two traits that they don't have. And that's the reason why we were able to leave them in the dust. They talked about all of that lowbrow stuff because that was something they could actually talk about. It was on their level. So we made it a point to initiate a type of discourse that would be so far over their empty heads, they wouldn't be able to reach it. That's why you see them slinging crap from the sidelines. This is the season for that kind of mess, so I ask you to be on watch for it. Trying to use petty, trivial disagreements as a way to make a group of people split up is a tactic as old as white supremacy itself. Take some minor, meaningless disagreement over a single word or over one little issue, and then try to see if you can make it into something. Divide and conquer. The truth, however, is none of us agrees on absolutely every single little thing and every little detail, no matter how tiny. But then again, as long as we agree on the major things, that we must have our power, and that we are uncompromising on that, then those other things become less important. We focus on what matters most. Clout chasers trying to start beefs are emotionally starved and politically irrelevant. When you see people trying to sow division amongst us, call them out, because that's off code. If there's anything that we should have learned from all of the black people killed by police or some anti-black racist on the streets, it's that we need to make sure people are on code before we lend our voices to theirs. Because a lot of black folks are simply trying to do what the feminists did in the 1960s, get black people to join them, join their little operations so they can boost their numbers and augment what they're doing, and it's only going to benefit themselves and themselves alone. Well, we're not going for the okie doke. People trying to undermine the new voices of black media are not advocates. They're just self-interested grifters. They're the epitome of off-code. Among the black grassroots, these agents are the equivalent of weeds and poison ivy. And you don't argue with a weed or poison ivy. You yank it out and throw it away. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Kimba Shakur, Workhorse Enterprise, Glenda Tice, Kenneth Prescia, and Rosalind Vinson. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.